Hello and welcome. Find a comfortable space and let the world outside fade away. Tonight, we journey. We travel across the wide, sleeping savanna and into the deep, ancient heart of the rainforest. We come to a place where the trees are so tall they whisper to the clouds, and the rivers run with stories older than memory. This is a story from a time when the world was still being shaped. It is the story of a village called Ukru, a people who had forgotten their name, and a young woman who had to listen to the one thing everyone else ignored: silence. This is the tale of the silent drums of Ukuru. The village of Ukuru was not a poor village. Its people were strong. Their yams grew large, their hunters were skilled, and their drums are the most famous in all the land. They had drums for celebration, drums for mourning, drums for calling the rains. The sound of Ukuru's drumming was like the very heartbeat of the earth itself. It was their pride. But over many seasons, a strange thing happened. The drumming became less about the heart and more about the hands. It became a competition. Who could play the fastest? Who could be the loudest? The rhythms, once rich with meaning, became complex and empty, a noise to show skill, not to tell a story. The village elder, Baba Keda, a man so old he seemed carved from the very wood of the forest, watched this with a heavy heart. He would try to speak. "My children," his voice would rasp like dry leaves. "You have forgotten the song within the rhythm. You play to impress each other, but you do not play to speak to the sky, to thank the earth, to remember our ancestors." But the young drummers would just smile and play even faster, drowning out his weak words. They called his ways old and dusty. The soul of Ukuru was fading, and only the noise remained. In this village lived a young woman named Zawadi. She was not a drummer. A childhood illness had left her unable to hear the world of sound. She lived in a world of vibration and sight. She felt the thrum of the drums through the soles of her feet. She saw the frantic, sweaty effort of the players, and she saw the tired, disconnected faces of those who had to listen. While others heard the deafening noise, Zawadi felt the emptiness. One day, a great drought fell upon the land. The sun was a furious eye in a bleached sky. The rivers shrank. The crops withered. The people of Ukuru grew fearful. "We must drum," the lead drummer, Jingo, declared. "We will drum so powerfully, so loudly, that the rain spirits will have to hear us. They will have no choice." And so they drummed. For a full day and night, they played with all their strength and skill. The noise was tremendous, echoing off the hills. Zawadi watched from the edge of the village. She placed her hands on the dry, cracked earth. She felt the angry, panicked vibrations of the drums. She saw the dust rising from the pounding skins, and she saw that with every beat, the faces of the rain clouds gathering on the horizon seemed to flinch and pull away. The drums were not calling the rain. They were driving it away. At the end of the second day of drumming, the drummers collapsed, exhausted. Their hands were raw. Their throats were dry. Not a single drop of rain had fallen. A silence fell over Ukuru, a desperate, fearful silence. It was in this silence that Zawadi approached Baba Keda. She knelt before him and began to communicate. She did not use words. She pointed to the dry earth, then to her own heart. She mimed the frantic, aggressive drumming, then shook her head sadly. She pointed to the distant clouds, then held her hands out, open and gentle, as if receiving a gift. Baba Keda's old eyes watched her intently. He alone had always seen the world through her eyes. He understood. "You feel what we cannot hear," he whispered. "The drums have no heart. They are a shout, not a prayer. The spirits do not answer shouts." Zawadi nodded. She then pointed to the forest and made a walking motion with her fingers. "You wish to go into the forest? Now, at night?" Baba Keda asked. It was forbidden, dangerous, but he saw the certainty in her eyes. He nodded. "Go. Listen in your way. Perhaps the world will speak to you as it will not to us." And so Zawadi walked into the dark, silent forest. The others, watching from their huts, thought it was madness. But Zawadi was not afraid of the silence. It was her home. She walked deep into the forest, to the oldest, largest baobab tree, the one her people called the grandfather. She placed her forehead against its immense, gnarled trunk and closed her eyes. She couldn't hear, but she could feel. She felt the slow, deep, ancient pulse of the tree itself. Thump, thump like a heartbeat once every minute. She felt the gentle vibration of a moth's wings on a leaf. She felt the faint tremor of a single drop of dew falling from a high branch and hitting the soil below. She felt the world breathing. It was not loud. It was not fast. It was a slow, patient, interconnected rhythm. It was the true song of the earth. She understood. Ukuru's drumming was not part of this song. It was fighting against it. As she sat there, a family of elephants moved quietly through a clearing nearby. The great matriarch paused and looked at Zawadi. She was not afraid. She lifted her trunk and let out a soft, low rumble, a sound so deep it was less of a noise and more of a feeling, a vibration of comfort and understanding that passed through the earth and into Zawadi's bones. In that moment, Zawadi knew what she had to do. Zawadi returned to the village as the first light of dawn touched the sky. The people were gathered, despondent. They saw her walk straight to the central drum, the great Ngoma drum that was only used for the most important ceremonies. Django the drummer stepped forward. "What are you doing? You cannot play. You do not know how." Zawadi ignored him. She looked at Baba Keita, who gave a slow, solemn nod of permission. She did not pick up the drumsticks. Instead, she knelt before the great drum. She placed her palms flat on the drum skin, still and silent. She closed her eyes. The villagers watched in confused silence. She was remembering. She was feeling the slow pulse of the baobab tree. She was feeling the patient rhythm of the world. She took a deep, slow breath. And then she leaned forward and gently placed her forehead against the drum skin. She held it there for a long moment. It was not a strike. It was a connection. Then, with a slowness that was itself a kind of music, she lifted her right hand. She held it high, not with force, but with grace. And she brought it down. Thump! The sound was so different. It wasn't a hit. It was an opening. It was a single, clear note that spoke of waiting, of patience. The people felt it in their chests. They gasped. Zawadi waited. She let the silence after the drumbeat live and breathe. She listened to it with her whole body. Thump! A second beat, identical to the first. A perfect echo. Thump! Thump! She began a rhythm. It was not complex. It was not fast. It was profoundly simple. A slow, steady, heart-like rhythm. She wasn't playing at the sky. She was playing with the earth. The rhythm matched the pulse she had felt in the forest. It was an invitation. One by one, the villagers sat down. They closed their eyes. They stopped hearing the drum and started feeling it. They felt their own heartbeats slowing to match its pace. They felt their frantic fear melting away, replaced by a deep, collective calm. Django the drummer watched, and for the first time, he wasn't thinking about technique. He had tears in his eyes. He finally understood what Baba Keita had meant. He was hearing music for the first time, and then a miracle. A single, cool drop of water fell from the sky and landed on the dry drum skin. Plink! Then another, and another. Zawadi never broke her rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. As the rain began to fall, a gentle, soaking rain that kissed the parched earth. The people did not run for cover. They lifted their faces to the sky, laughing and crying, letting the rain wash over them. They had not shouted the rain down. They had invited it with a rhythm it recognized, the true, silent song of the world itself. From that day on, the village was changed. They never forgot the lesson of Zawadi, the drummer who could not hear. The first thing every new drummer learned was not a complex rhythm, but how to be silent, how to listen with their hands and their heart before they ever struck a drum. They learned that the most important part of any song is the silence between the notes, for that is where understanding grows. And so, the heart of a kuru was not found in its noise, but in its quiet, a quiet that held the rhythm of the earth, the patience of the trees, and the wisdom of listening to a world that speaks not always to our ears, but always to our souls. Thank you for listening. May you find the music in your own silence. Sleep well.